Recording in progress.
Good morning, brothers and sisters. Welcome to National Family Service. It's snowing here in the Northeast, but I hope you're all warm and you're all staying cozy, taking care of yourself at this time. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We're an international family. We're a family federation brought together by Father and Mother Moon, who we call our true parents. And as a community, we're centered on the values of true love, true lineage, and filial piety, which is substantiated through what we call the Holy Marriage Blessing. If you'd like to learn more, you can just type hashtag connect in the Facebook chat or visit nationalfamilyservice.org. That's nationalfamilyservice.org. All right, now let's kick things off with our opening song.
For our opening song today, let's go to Los Angeles, California, and sing along with the Los Angeles Band as they play the song, Your Grace is Enough.
Faithfulness, oh God, you wrestle with the sinner's heart. You lead us by still waters and to mercy, and nothing can keep us apart. So remember your people. Remember your children. Remember your promise, oh God. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. Release your love and justice, God. You use the weak to lead the strong. You lead us in the song of your salvation. And all your people sing along. So remember your people. Remember your children. Remember your promise, oh God. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. Yeah, your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. So remember your people. Remember your children. Remember your promise, oh God. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. Your grace is enough. Heaven reaching down to us. Your grace is enough for me. God, I see your grace is enough. I'm covered in
Thank you, Los Angeles Band, for that opening song. Now join us for our opening prayer.
Good morning, brothers and sisters. Please join me in prayer. Our most beloved Heavenly Parent, we're so grateful to be gathered here today on this Sunday morning to hear from our wonderful President and hear your words. I pray that during this time we can open our hearts to hear what you need to share with every single one of us, because during the week we all have our struggles. We all, strive to be our best, but it can be hard working alone. And we have this wonderful time once a week that we can come together as a community and know that we're not alone, that we have this support together, and that we also have your support, Heavenly Parent, and that you're always working throughout our daily lives to give us your love and give us your support and give us what we need to hear. So I pray that during this time we can open our hearts to you so that we can hear the message that you need us to hear, and that through this message we can gain strength and grow as human beings, and we can use that love that you give us to help the people around us and to multiply it to the people that we love and to our communities and to our loved ones. I pray this today in my name, Athia Shbuya, and in all of our names. Achu.
Next, let's move on over to Orange County, California to hear the song Soon, performed by Eric Ross and Michio Nomoto.
Soon, very soon, my King is coming, robed in righteousness and crowned with love. When I see him, I shall be made like him soon and very soon. Soon and very soon, I'll be going to the place he has prepared for me. There my sin erased, my shame forgotten, soon and very Jesus Christ, the Lamb, the Lord of heaven. I will be with the one I love, with unveiled face I see him. There my soul will be satisfied. Soon and very soon. Soon and very soon. Soon and very soon.
Beautiful song. Thank you so much, Eric and Michio, always presenting and singing so well. Thank you for offering. Also, the LA band, you always perform, you always submit something. So really appreciate all that you do for us. And of course, Atia, for opening us up with a very beautiful prayer. I also see a lot of comments in the Facebook chat. Thank you all for joining us. A lot of encouragement for the singers there. But I also saw someone from Cambodia. So thank you for joining National Family Service. And now we're going to go on to our main message for today. You all know him. You all love him. He's here every single week. I'd like to introduce the Family Federation of North America. USA, President Naokimi Ushiroda.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. I pray and hope that each of you are experiencing a blessed life. You know, last night, Mother Moon just completed hosting an amazing week-long summit for peace on the Korean Peninsula. It was amazing. There were like 85 global leaders, current and former heads of state, who expressed their support towards a unified Korea. Some of the speakers included the current Cambodian Prime Minister, Hun Sen. Also, the former UN Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, was also a co-convener of the event. And we even had a message from the former President of America, President Trump, and former Vice President Pence was actually there in South Korea, also on stage, sharing a message of encouragement and the possibility of and hope towards a reunification of Korea. So it was a very special event. It happened to be in Korea. It was February 13th of 2022, which here in America is also the same day. And today happens to be also my blessing of marriage anniversary. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank my wife for being together and learning to love each other for 22 years. Happy anniversary, honey. Okay, so last week we talked about the sin effect, where we introduced the 4 kinds of sin that came about due to the human fall. If you can remember, there was original sin. That's at the very beginning where it all started. Then there was hereditary sin, which is all the sins that your particular ancestry caused. And third was the collective sin. This is the sin that you have by association, by your nationality or ethnicity. Even though you or your particular ancestors didn't do anything wrong, by association, you're partially responsible for that as well. And then finally, individual sin, and that's the sin that you personally cause. As we discussed last time, I introduced the concept of paying indemnity, or basically making amends to restore the relationships that were damaged due to those sins. So that's kind of what we covered last time. Now today, I wanted to go more deeply into the 4th sin, which is individual or personal sin. This is a sin that we are most responsible for because it's the sins that we commit during our lifetime, whereas the other 3 kinds of sin were committed by others before we were even born. So in order to effectively deal with our sins, we need to understand better the underlying four fallen natures that we inherited, which compels us to commit sin. Without addressing these four fallen natures, there is no way for us to ever be free of sin. So let's take a look at some passages on this topic in the divine principle. Eve inherited from the archangel all the proclivities incidental to his transgression against God when he bound her in blood ties through their sexual relationship. Adam, in turn, acquired the same inclinations when Eve bound him in blood ties through their sexual relationship. So one thing to note here is that the sexual act is a very powerful experience. And according to principle, it's not only a physical interaction, but a deeply spiritual one as well. So when you engage in a sexual union, you actually build a spiritual bond with the person that you're engaging with. So this way, we learn here that Eve inherited some of Lucifer's nature and feelings through their sexual union. And when Eve seduced Adam, he also inherited some of Eve's nature, which she got from Lucifer. Let's continue. These proclivities have become the root cause of the fallen inclinations in all people. They are the primary characteristics of our fallen nature. Adam and Eve, representing our first ancestors, thus passed down these fallen inclinations generation after generation to all their descendants. And that, unfortunately, is why we also have these fallen natures. Now, you may say that this is just a story, but it makes a lot of sense. And you may be surprised how real this really is. Let's take a look. Actually, the principle identifies four fallen natures, and I'm going to go over them one by one. I just want to say that although I'm explaining them independently, these four fallen natures are very intricately tied with each other. And it's not like, okay, let's do one, and then two, and then three and four. It's almost like simultaneous. But we want to just make them distinct so that you have a very clear sense of each of these aspects of the four fallen natures. So let's start with the first one. The first is failing to take God's standpoint. A principal cause of the archangel's fall was his failure to love Adam with the same heart and perspective as God. Instead, he felt jealous of Adam. This led him to tempt Eve. So the first fallen nature is failure to see from God's viewpoint. Lucifer didn't see Adam and Eve from God's viewpoint. Instead, he looked at them from his own self-centered viewpoint, which led to envy and ultimately the fall. And as we go through these, you'll notice that actually the starting point of all of this always comes back to failure to see things from God's viewpoint. Let's continue. An example of this characteristic of the fallen nature is when a courtier feels jealous of the king's favorite instead of sincerely respecting him as one whom the king loves. You know, we see this happening all the time. One quick example is Jafar from Aladdin. It's a classic character in many stories, you know, the evil advisor who wants to take over everything, which is not his or hers. But it's not just in stories, it's in our lives as well. What are some examples of this first fallen nature of not seeing from God's viewpoint? Well, the main one associated to this is jealousy. Being jealous, for example, of your sibling doing better than you at school, or maybe a friend getting attention from someone that you like, or a colleague who got that promotion that you felt that you deserved. when have you failed to see others from God's viewpoint and been drawn to this self-centered feelings of jealousy instead of being genuinely happy for them? Now, a less known example of the first fallen nature is self-criticism or hatred. Actually, before I go into that one, that's a really important part. I want to go back and just give an example. I remember there was one time when I was working in CARP, which is the Collegiate Association for the Research of Principle. It's a campus-led ministry. And I was working as staff there for maybe 5 years. And then there was a kind of a succession planning, and they were going to appoint the new president. And I fully expected that I was going to be appointed as the CARP president at that time. But my good buddy, he was also a core staff, and he was appointed as the president, and it was quite disappointing. I had so many reasons why it should have been me at that time. Of course, hindsight 2020, I'm glad that that didn't happen at that particular time. But my point is, the feelings are real, especially if you worked hard for something, and when someone else gets something that you want, it's very easy to feel jealous. But in that moment, it's okay to feel that way. But if we go back to seeing from God's viewpoint, it's not about me. How does God view the situation? That actually can help you stay centered even in those kind of situations. Okay, now let's move on to the less known example of the first fallen nature, which is self-criticism and self-hatred. Okay, this is an example of not seeing yourself from God's viewpoint. Now, it's one thing about not seeing others from God's viewpoint, but many of us struggle with not seeing ourselves from God's viewpoint. The most common side effect of this is not feeling good enough. And if you really think about it, all envy stems from this, is not feeling your own self-worth, your own self-value. This point really came up for me in an experience I had. I was, when my son was really young, he was 2 or 3 years old, and he was kicking a ball around in a field towards a goal. And I was really encouraging him, like, you can do it. And he kind of kicked the ball, but he was tripping over it. And anyway, he was almost about to get the goal. Like, he was literally a foot away, but he kicked it sideways, and it didn't go in the goal. Of course, I was disappointed, but I wanted to encourage him. So I kept encouraging him to try again. But he was really depressed. He was down on himself. He said, I can't do this. I can't. And I kept trying to encourage him, but he didn't want to try again. And I remember, thinking, God must feel that way towards each of us. God wants us to keep going or kind of fulfill our potential, but we hold ourselves back. We say, I'm not good enough. I can't do that. And actually, if you believe that God is your parent, then God is, just imagine the kind of frustration. Well, like, he wants the best for us, but he can't make us do things, right? So it's kind of up to us, is that when we put ourselves down, we're actually doing a disservice to God, because we're actually not seeing ourselves, actually a disservice to ourselves, because we're not seeing ourselves for our true potential as true sons and daughters of God. So I want to really emphasize this point, is that, not seeing from God's viewpoint includes not seeing yourself from God's viewpoint. Okay, let's continue with the second fallen nature. Let's read. The second is leaving one's proper position. Seeking more of God's love, Lucifer desired to enjoy the same position of love in the human world as he had in the angelic world. This unrighteous desire caused him to leave his position and fall. So the second fallen nature is leaving your proper position. Lucifer left his position as a humble servant to God, and by default, a servant to Adam and Eve, who were the children of God. And instead, he sought to take over what was not his. The kingdom was not his. He was supposed to be a servant to support God in providing the kingdom for Adam and Eve. But instead, he sought after what was not his, and that was Lucifer leaving his proper position as an object to God and as a servant to both God and Adam and Eve. Let's continue reading. People are induced by unrighteous desires to step beyond the bounds of what is right and overreach themselves because of this primary characteristic of the fallen nature. So, how does this apply to us? Whenever you leave your position as an object to God, you are leaving your proper position. Whenever you have unrighteous thoughts, or when your physical desires dominate your spiritual desires, you are leaving your proper position as an object partner to God. Actually, most of the 7 deadly sins fall in this category. For example, lust. You're desiring physical pleasure over a spiritual union. Or gluttony. You're being dominated by your desire for food. And also, you're not treating your body as a temple of God, right? You're just overindulging, and you're letting your physical desires be more important than your spiritual desires. In fact, in that kind of situation, you're not thinking about God, right? When you're committing any of these sins. Another common deadly sin is pride, arrogance, thinking it's all about you, right? If you maintain an object position to God, then you can actually curtail this arrogance, because you know that whatever gift or ability or success you had, it's out of the grace of God that it happened. Even your talents were given by God. So you can stay humble in that kind of situation. But when you leave that proper position as an object partner to God, then you are susceptible to these deadly sins. Now, another common one I want to say is sloth. Yes, laziness. We all experience this sometimes, but when we seek excessive comfort, it's a physical desire, right? We don't want to do anything. We want to just lie down, play video games, watch Netflix, and do that all day. That's actually leaving a proper position of you maintaining your role as object to God. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do any of those things at all times. I'm just saying anything in excess is probably you really forgetting your position as an object partner to God or as a temple of God, which just imagine a parent watching over you all the time, right? How would a parent feel? Of course, your parent wants you to do well, wants you to make the most of your life, wants you to experience joy and success. That's basically how God feels towards each of us. But that's if we're paying attention to that, right? So when have you left your proper position as an object to God? Or let your physical needs be subject over your spiritual health? Trying to think of an example here about leaving my proper position. I guess the most common one I can think of is when I thought critically about my former boss, one of my former bosses. I've had like 7. But point is that when I think I can do a better job than my boss, I'm actually leaving my proper position, because it's not my job to criticize my boss's him doing. It's actually my boss's boss that needs to decide whether they're doing a good job. So yeah, that's probably my most common experience is when I think I can do better. In that situation, it's really important to do your best to maintain your position as an object to your boss and give constructive feedback, support them, help them do their best in fulfilling their job. That's really your job as an object partner. So that's how you would do it. But very commonly, leaving your proper position is when you no longer stay object to God and also to your, direct supervisor. Okay, another example I just want to share quickly is not wanting to tithe. Okay, you say, oh, I don't want to tithe because, that pastor, he doesn't know how to manage money. I don't want to give money if I don't think that they can do a good job with it. Well, guess what? Tithing is actually a spiritual practice between you and God. It's not about how it's being used. It's your spiritual practice of you offering 10% back to God. So it's not even about how effective an administrator that pastor is. It's about you and your responsibility to offer all things and not be subjugated by material things by offering 10% back to God. So maintaining a proper position to God includes the practice of tithing. Same thing with attending service. Again, you have different options, but it's by maintaining objectivity to God that you're able to not depend it or blame others for your own spiritual health. Okay, let's continue with the third fallen nature. I'm dwelling on this one too much. Okay, third fallen nature. Oh, I guess I got to read this. Yeah, hold on. Let's continue to read. The third is reversing dominion. The angel who was supposed to come under the dominion of human beings instead dominated Eve. Then Eve, who was supposed to come under the dominion of Adam, dominated him instead. So the third fallen nature is reversing the proper order. Lucifer was supposed to be object to Adam and Eve, but instead he became subject over them. Eve then repeated the same thing. Instead of being an object partner to Adam, she took subjectivity over him. Let's continue. This disruption of the proper order has borne bitter fruit. Human society is thrown out of order by people who leave their proper position and then reverse the order of dominion. Whenever you take over something that is not yours, you're acting on this third fallen nature of reversing dominion. So some examples include wrath. When you let your frustration be subject over God's love for the person that you're angry at, that's actually an example of reversing dominion. Okay. Another, example is subversion, or an extreme case of this is a coup d'etat, right? When you actually take over what's not yours out of the proper order, then you're reversing dominion. If you look at human history, there's so many examples of this, right? This is basically an example of the third fallen nature of reversing dominion. So when have you reversed dominion in a relationship? One example I want to share here is, even in our own ministry, we've had splinter groups, and I think this is a very common, and this is not just us, any religion, they have this happening. But the fundamental issue is when one person feels that they can do a better job leading this ministry than the founders or the original intent, then that's what leads to splinter groups, where instead of staying object to that original intention or to God's intention, they try to take it over. Now, if they independently do it themselves, that's one thing, but taking over the foundation of something that already existed, that's really a violation of principle. So Yeah, that's happened. We just need to be careful. Even in that situation, if you're in, I was working under that leadership, I still had to maintain my object position to support them, but knowing that it's above me that will address that situation. Anyway, without getting too complicated, let's go to the fourth fallen nature. Fourth is multiplying the criminal act. After the fall, after her fall, had Eve not repeated her sin by seducing Adam, Adam would have remained whole. The restoration of Eve alone would have been relatively easy. However, Eve spread her sin to others by inducing Adam to fall. So the fourth fallen nature is simply multiplying evil. As it says here, Eve unfortunately multiplied her sin by seducing Adam. And again, it would have been a lot easier to fix the fall had Adam not fallen as well. So let's continue. The proclivity of evil people to entangle others in an expanding web of crime stems from this primary characteristic of the fallen nature. So whenever you spread negativity, you're acting on this fourth fallen nature of multiplying evil. You know, they say misery loves company. You know, gangs are fundamentally designed by this nature. Also, people tend to justify their actions by getting others to join them in sinning, right? It doesn't feel as bad if someone else is doing it, or if someone else is already doing it, you don't feel as bad joining them because someone else is already doing it, right? So it's kind of like you steal the cookie, but you share it with your sibling. So you're not the only one that'll get in trouble. So this is a very common fallen nature that we act on. Whenever we criticize others or gossip about someone else, when outside of, not in front of them, you're not talking with them, but you're talking about them, that's multiplying evil. When have you done this? I think this happens on small levels, even like last night. I mean, it was an amazing program, but it was 4 hours long. So I couldn't help myself but complain a little bit, you know, sideways, saying, when are we gonna get to a more normal kind of hours? But yeah, it's important that you notice it when you're committing that, and then acknowledge it, and then find ways to manage these fallen natures, which we all have. I found one image online that conveyed an example of how negativity can spread even beyond the person you're talking about. So this is I think it's a painting or a poster. It's from Richard Sargent, and it's titled Anger Transference, 1954. So, you know, it's pretty self-explanatory, but the boss gets angry at the employee goes home and expresses the anger to the wife. Wife gets that pent-up energy and, you know, gets angry at the child and poor cat. The poor cat is being also scolded by the child. So this is very common, right? And this is an example of multiplying evil. When you spread negativity, that energy actually tends to transfer. So someone has to break that trend, otherwise it continues. And that's basically what we see in human history. You know, I was thinking just for a moment that COVID might be a good analogy towards negativity, right? It spreads as long as you're in the same room, right? You're in talking distance with somebody, then it can spread. You know, even something like selfishness is quite contagious. And some sins will make you sick temporarily, and some sins will kill you. So yeah, one way to immunize yourself against these fallen natures and sinning is to know the truth. So the power of truth can really protect you. You may not be completely immune, you'll be affected, but it'll have a less impact on you the more you understand the truth. So with that, I want to go into the 4 original natures. The original natures is basically the reverse of the four fallen natures. So, and this is the best way to address the fallen natures. So the original nature is basically, for number one, instead of failing to see from God's viewpoint, it's see from God's viewpoint, right? So in any situation, always ask yourself, what does God think about this? How would God feel about this? What would a loving heavenly parent feel about this situation? This has helped me more than anything else to remind me about what's the proper order. Second, maintain your proper position. Even if you're not feeling it, even if you disagree, always maintain and stay true as an object to God. And if you have a good boss, hopefully, or a boss, even in a work situation, it would be unity with them. In a spiritual pastoral situation, it's in unity with your pastor. And third, instead of reversing dominion, do not reverse dominion. I guess that's very simple and clear, right? Even if you feel it, don't act on it. Don't do a coup d'etat. Find a way to work it out. Talk with them and try to find a good solution. And finally, instead of multiplying evil, multiply goodness. So instead of talking bad about people, you might be like, hey, I understand you don't think he's doing a great job, but hey, think about all the stress that international headquarters had to put that program together. All we have to do is show up. So in that way, even if you're feeling differently, you can spread positivity. So in summary, there are four fallen natures that compel us to sin. First is not seeing from God's viewpoint. Second is leaving your proper position as an object partner to God. Third is reversing dominion. And fourth is multiplying evil. And good news is there are four original natures that we can use and strengthen to overcome these natures. So as I mentioned last time, knowing is half the battle. I recently started researching a diet program called Noom, and it addresses weight loss not by limiting your food intake, like controlling what to eat, what not to eat, but by educating you on your mindset around food. So I think that dealing with sin effectively requires a similar approach. Trying just limiting your sin or not sinning is like a fad diet, on and off again, which can be frustrating and discouraging. Instead, let's address the underlying tendencies to sin by acknowledging and being aware of the fallen natures as they show up and strengthening or counteracting them with our original natures. And with practice, we can get better at addressing them as they surface. So with that in mind, may God bless you and your family this week. And for those from America, enjoy Super Bowl Sunday. Thank you very much.
So much, President Alkimi. That was a great sermon. I feel like you just categorize all of my own shortcomings. It's incredible. I hope you all had a great learning experience, maybe a refresher for some of you. But now we're going to go into our 1 minute of reflection. Just take this moment to think about and to reflect on what you just heard from today's message. Right. So while we're taking this moment to reflect, let's hear some live reflections, reflections from our panelists. Both from New York, we have Dr. Claude Perrotet, and of course, the two lovebirds we see all the time, Ilya and Diane Hack. So welcome, everyone. Welcome to National Family Service. I'd like to start with Dr. Claude Perrotet. Just if you could share any insights, anything you gained from today, and if you'd like to share even what fallen nature stood out to you, or how you felt called out during this. This is not a confessional booth, so you can limit what you say, but feel free to share.
Okay, thank you. During this whole time, I was thinking, shall I speak about the bad stuff or the good stuff? Because I have no time for both, and you made it easy for me. So I'll speak about the bad stuff. Back to about 20 or 30 or maybe more, 40 years ago, in a spiritual retreat we had in Greece, in the probably beautiful city of Corinth. But I just went from the airport to the place where we had that retreat, and it was a very challenging moment. It was a hotel straight on the seaside. Very intense, we were very tired, also very sweaty because it's hot summer. And going through all these things, I started being more and more busy focusing on my situation, not in a very physical way, feeling I'm hypersensitive, which can be a plus, but also negative. And in the evening, when everything was over and I totally exhausted, I had this like enormous desire, a need to be free of all that stickiness, at least take a shower. Now, bad luck, the water was seawater from which the salt had been removed by some special process, but not entirely. So I was taking that shower, and long story short, the more I was showering, the more, as soon as I dried, I started feeling sticky because the water that I used to remove my sweat was sticky. And it was just unbearable. And at one moment, I started feeling really, this was like not a metaphor, but it was really my fallen nature sticking to me. And I just became aware in such a deep and strong way how difficult it is to get rid of that sticky fallen nature, which attached me basically to me. I could, if I had been one moment able to think of something else, something higher, I would have not even felt that stickiness. So both things came together. It was so strong that it was like a wake-up moment for me. And then I have many nicer things to say, but I think my time is over. So the point is, it really taught me that how fallen I was without knowing. When you don't move, when you don't do anything to get rid of your fallen nature, you don't even notice it. It's like you're attached to a tiger. He is sleeping. He's not going to move. The moment you move, he'll wake up and jump at you. That was that moment for me.
Hey, Dr. Claude, what did you do to combat that aspect of yourself, that fallen nature?
I just endured. And 2 days later, a shower of blessing just dropped on me. Yeah, I endured and did my best. I couldn't overcome myself, but I think all I did is I didn't give up. And 2 days later, just boom, I had one of the most incredible experiences in my life of liberation, total liberation.
Thank you so much for sharing. This is an incredible story, for sharing with us, Dr. Claude. All right, now let's go on to Ilya and Diane. I know you have a lot to say, but feel free to share just anything that stood out for you. And if it's a fallen nature that you felt was called out during our Kimi sermon, but also how you deal with it, something you do in terms of more of an original nature mindset, a reversal of these fallen natures. Let's start with Ilya. Nice shirt, by the way. Very African.
I actually got this from my mother-in-law, so this is really nice. But anyway. So I think this sermon was actually kind of a recap for me, because it just kind of told me that I needed keep doing this. I need to actually start looking, be more aware again, because I feel like I maybe forgot about the four fallen natures. And honestly, maybe at this point of time, it's like I need to rethink about those. Maybe those feelings come up again, where especially the first one that Reverend Alkimi mentioned was like not seeing from God's viewpoint. One of the biggest things, of course, is like not seeing myself from God's viewpoint. And that used to be such a big thing for me. And, you know, in the past, the reason that sorry, but yeah, like a lot of people around me said that I've changed a lot. And it was because I really worked on that specific point of really looking at myself and catching myself when I'm not seeing myself from God's viewpoint. And I started to be more confident because I knew God was confident in me. And God loved me, and I'm a God's child, and I should not forget that. And sometimes, and maybe more recent times, I lost that again. And this sermon is actually kind of a reminder that I need to see that myself as God's child. So, yeah, thank you, Reverend Alkimi, because for me, I feel like I was revived again, and to see all those four fallen natures myself. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ilya. Let's go on to your beautiful wife, Diane.
Yeah, thank you, Reverend Alkimi, for today's sermon. And actually, I was going to share the same thing, so he stole my reflection. But my reflection was also about, I don't know, I just felt like when Reverend Alkimi was, you know, when he was speaking, something that stood out to me, which is funny because last night, that's exactly how I felt. Like I felt like if I couldn't feel God's love. And so just hearing from Reverend Alkimi today, it reminded me of how like precious we are, and how like we shouldn't have self-doubt, or like even, have low self-esteem or things like that. And it really reminded me that God loves me, and that God is always there. And anyway, so it was a really good reminder. And one thing that also stood out to me was about the negativity, how like, spreading negativity is not such a good way to, to love people, or it's a fallen nature that's hard to get rid of. Right. So because when you're living with people, or when you're like, you're mad, like even when you give the example of the event that happened last night of like 4 hours, you're like, when is it going to be done? And then you start talking to your friends like, oh my God, that event was so long. And so it's like, you're spreading all this negativity, but no, truly, really, I realized that, we have these fallen natures, and if we're not really aware of it, then we can't really get rid of it. Mm-hmm. Right. I think Dr. Claude really emphasized on the fact that, we really have to be aware of the stickiness, like everything that's around us, all the fallen nature that's around us, we have to be aware of it. And one thing that Reverend Alkimi mentioned also that stood out to me was, he said, the moment that we're aware of it, or the moment that we try our best to recognize those fallen natures, that's the moment that we're going to get rid of, or at least limit the amount of fallen natures that we're practicing in our lives. Because sometimes if we're not aware of it, we tend to not recognize what we're doing to others, and we're even hurting God's heart without knowing it. So awareness is the biggest thing for me, like the diet, like also taking time. It takes time. It's really hard to get rid of, but it takes time. It's not just like, you do a diet and then you lose weight, right? It takes time to really like practice, go to the gym and things like that. So, yeah, those are the really like good points that I received today.
Thanks, Diane, for sharing. A very thorough in your sharing today. It reminded me of a book I had read, some time ago, Compound Effect. He says, small, smart choices plus consistency plus time makes radical difference. Right. And so the change in mindset, that's what I love the most. It's not just quitting cold turkey or just deciding to stop. When you change your mindset, then it becomes increasingly easier to avoid things that you shouldn't do or don't want to do. And so that's an aspect of President Alkimi's sermon that I really, really appreciated. And so that about wrapped things up. But just remember, the last one was reversal of multiplication of sin. The inverse is multiplication of goodness. So I know very well that when you smile, it really affects someone else's mood. So if you're watching from home, feel free to affect people positively by just smiling or just telling them they look good, just like Ilya's shirt today. All right. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Claude. Thank you for joining us, Ilya and Diane Hack. And now on to our challenge of the week, like we always have. Talk about your fallen nature with your spiritual mentor. Talk about your fallen nature with your spiritual mentor, parent, or spouse, and decide on one thing you can do this week to practice your original nature. That's right. I know it's a mouthful, but pretty much just talk about your fallen nature, identify it, and practice original nature. Just do good. All right, now I'd like to also invite you all. So basically, we just had a live panelist, right? So if you'd like to be part of the live panelists, if you'd like to pray, if you'd like to offer songs, feel free to contact your local pastor. Your local pastor, if you're like to submit a song, just email music@nationalfamilyservice.org. All right, brothers and sisters, let's now go into our closing song.
Now, let's join Tina Fields Zalata for our closing prayer.
Good morning, brothers and sisters. Please join me in prayer. Our most beloved Heavenly Parents, our true parents of heaven, earth, and all humankind, thank you so much for today. And thank you so much to President Naokimi for his message about the 4 fallen natures and the 4 original natures, Heavenly Parent. We've heard this before. We've heard about the 4 fallen natures, but it was a good refresher to hear, Heavenly Parent. And personally for me, it was really touching to hear about really things lead back to how we don't hear or we don't see from your viewpoint, Heavenly Parent, not only others, but ourselves. And so, Heavenly Parent, in reflection, even thinking about last night when our True Mother in the victory of the World Summit, how our True Mother is really bringing our world together as one family under God. And Heavenly Parent, we really want to understand who we are as your sons and daughters. And when we understand who we are as your sons and daughters, we can practice our original nature. We can practice who we are supposed to be, knowing that, Heavenly Parent, you are encouraging us to fulfill our potential as individuals, as your children, and Heavenly Parent, making a better society and a better world, bringing unification. Heavenly Parent, thank you so much for today. Please bless everyone this week. Heavenly Parent, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. Let us show our love and our original nature tomorrow and all throughout this week. And Heavenly Parent, let us be a blessing. We thank you, and we want to offer this prayer all together as blessed families. And I just want to offer this prayer. Tina and Freddie Zalata, a blessed Central family. Jew and amen.
And for our closing song, let's head over to San Diego, California to hear All the Above perform the song, Give Me Amazing Grace.
Waiting for the sun
Wow. That's an amazing song. Thank you, All the Above. You're the gift that keeps on giving. And of course, thank you, Tina Fields-Alada, for closing us out with such a beautiful prayer. This about wraps up today's National Family Service. If you'd like to support us, and I recommend you do, you can go to nationalfamilyservice.org. Click give at the top right and to support this ministry. So that's nationalfamilyservice.org/donate, or just type in a hashtag donate in the Facebook chat and you should get a link message to you to go directly towards supporting this ministry. And if you gained something from today, feel free to share this link as well. Same website, National Family Service, with your family, with your friends, or share the Facebook link so we can all grow. We can all try to be able to realize our own original nature this week. So that about wraps up everything. If you're in America, happy Super Bowl Sunday. And I hope to see you all. Well, we hope to see you all next week. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye-bye.